That was bloody well done, Delilah. Right. Who hasn't had a go at telling Barry's life story? Let's see a show of hands. Okay, Coleman, you're up next.
Thanks, mate. It's about time. I've been waiting over here for hours. Overexperienced. I was pretty much burned out as a supervisor. I missed my trade and wanted to get back at it. I tried working at a few fab shops, but there was a problem. I had become too experienced and too old. Now there was a younger workforce who seemed to resent me coming into their shops and showing them up. There's a saying, you can't go home again. I thought I could go home to a fabrication shop and do a day's work for a day's pay. But for the next few fab shops, that didn't work out. I met a young black immigrant laborer in one of those fab shops. I would talk to him once in a while. He always had this decorative hat without a rim, like the old bellhop's hat. I think the black immigrant's hat had something to do with his religion, because he never took it off. I told the Ethiopian that we, white people, had a belief that if we rubbed a black man's head, it was considered to be lucky. It was something I heard many years ago. When I was let go for being too experienced, sounds stupid, but that was why I was let go. Oh, they didn't say it like that. The supervisor had me do some difficult stainless steel pipe fitting and welding that only I could do before calling me into his office and saying, we're downsizing and you can find work easier than these young guys. So I've decided to let you go first. So here is your pay, vacation pay, and 2 months severance pay. It was the severance pay that gave it all away. I wasn't eligible for severance pay. I hadn't even worked there a year, and severance is never given to tradesmen. As I said, it was a small community of industrial tradesmen in a large city, and word got around quickly. The supervisor knew about my past experience as a supervisor and my connections, so it was possible that someday he would be walking into my office looking for a job. I gathered up my tools and began walking out of the shop, but as I was leaving the shop, the black Ethiopian laborer got in my path and was bowing with his hat off. It took me a moment to understand what he was doing, because almost a year had gone by. But then I remembered and rubbed the black man's head for good luck. You can find good people anywhere in this world. You might be in a foreign country, moneyless and hungry. Then someone offers to feed you, give you a place to sleep, and help you out in other ways. There is kindness everywhere, even in what we consider to be terrorist countries. This fact needs to be considered when you meet a strange-looking, needy immigrant family, because then it's your turn to do a good deed. Must be golden. I mentioned that we lived in a trailer for 7 years. This is why we moved. One day, I saw an ad in the newspaper which said, "House for sale, nothing down, must be golden." We had to check that out, so we made an appointment with the broker. As it turned out, the house was an estate sale and was in bad shape, but it was within walking distance of downtown and had a 2-car garage. The broker said, as long as you are golden, you can buy it. He checked our credit ratings, and we were golden, so we bought the house. We lived in that house for 5 years. And during that time, I did a lot of home improvements, including new roofing and felling 2 mature pine trees in the backyard. Then one day, a real estate agent knocked on our door and asked us if we wanted to sell the house. I just wanted the real estate salesman gone, so I said, sure, I'll sell it for $400,000. He said, I'll give it a try, and held an open house that very weekend. Sunday, the real estate salesman came over and told me that a lady made an offer of $389,000, no house inspection required. We paid $153,000 5 years prior. It was an offer we couldn't refuse. People often get attached to their houses, but selling your house and buying a fixer-upper to live in and improve will get you ahead much faster than working for 30 years hoping you've invested or saved enough to retire comfortably. If you know nothing about renovating houses, go to YouTube and learn how to do each job. And failing that, just paint the house inside and out. I walked into an industrial pump shop, dropped off my doctored resume, and soon I got a phone call. He sounded quite nice on the phone, wanted me to come in and look around. I did, he hired me, and it was a decent place to work. My new foreman was in charge of making small pump units. I had done that before, and his boss was a fairly young engineer who spent a lot of time drinking beer in his office. There were 6 machinists working in this shop. I talked to one of them. I said that my boss seemed like a nice guy, and the machinist said, "You'll find out." I learned about my boss by observing his manner. He was 3 different people in one body. I liked 2 of them, but that third one was an insensitive prick. Because I was old, about 58. My foreman called me the silverback, but didn't mind. I thought it was funny, but over the months, he started getting under my skin, and I couldn't confront him about any of it because when he changed personalities, he seemed to have no memory of what he'd said before. I started picking up keywords the foreman would say before he switched personalities. One was, "I concur." He would go around the shop talking to employees and saying, "I concur." Then he would stop saying it and become a different person. The multi-personality foreman did eventually get under my skin, but I knew he was sick in the head, so I put up with it. The company owner wouldn't have been any help because someone had complained about this multi-personality guy. When questioned about his insults, he adopted a different personality, denied everything, and the boss believed him. I guess the owner had no idea of my millwright foreman's mental state. After 2 years, I reached my limit. I liked the job, but my boss was nuts. What do you do in a case like that? I decided that it wasn't his fault, and I didn't want to put his job in jeopardy, so I decided to quietly walk out of there. I received my last paycheck in the mail.
The brain injured. After quitting the pump shop, I found it difficult to find welding jobs because of my age. We paid cash for a nice second-hand mobile home in a beautiful, landscaped trailer park in northeast Calgary, then bought a new car and lived there for 6 years. One day, my wife told me that her employer was looking for a handyman. I went to URSA, Universal Rehabilitation Services Agency, and was hired to do handyman work at their 3 client houses around the city of Calgary and occasionally at the main headquarters. There are URSA videos on YouTube. The main URSA building featured mock-ups of various places in the city where a brain-injured person could practice shopping, going to a theater, boarding a bus, etc. I had a company minivan and a card to buy materials at a building supply store whenever the need arose, and would do plumbing, drywall repair, whatever was needed to keep the houses and main building in good repair. The houses were occupied by brain-injured people and the URSA staff. I did have a boss, but she never told me what to do. I was just left to do whatever I thought needed to be done. One day, my 22-year-old boss was nearby when my wife asked me to do something. I said, "You're not the boss of me, she is," and I pointed to the girl, my wife, and I had a laugh, but my young boss didn't think it was funny. She was all business.
Also got creative. One young client was bedridden because his wheelchair was broken. He was waiting on a parental grant for a new one. I dismantled the chair in the basement, repaired it with 1-inch conduit, and returned it good as new. In another house, bored clients were in the sitting room. I saw a guitar, sang a few songs, a couple got up and danced, and the rest laughed. I got to know most of the clients by name.
And talked to them when I was working. I liked the brain-injured clients. It was like talking to neurotypicals who aren't encumbered by their past influences. Most brain-injured people have forgotten their past and are happily starting anew. My pay at Ursa was half of what I made as a welder, but I really liked working there. Sometimes money isn't everything.
Opportunity knocks. Then I got a call from Tom, the production manager at a global corporation. Remember when I convinced Tom I knew compressor station assembly by explaining a valve placement, air to open, air to close? At this point, I actually knew what I was doing. The shop was assembling multiple compressor stations, which then had to be disassembled for shipping overseas. The problem, customer crews had no idea how to reassemble them. My task was to solve that problem. I took the role of disassembly coordinator and, due to language barriers, decided to film every disassembly, sending the videos to customers on thumb drives. I tried translating printed instructions, but complex wording made it unreliable. Disassembly took days for each station. Every day, I walked around the shop filming disassemblies with my camcorder and got paid a very decent salary. Then Tom informed me engineering would take over my role. Friday came, and I had only a few days left. So I spent Friday doing something different with the camera. Change of direction. When I first met Tom, he mentioned they used to pay $6,000 for one safety video. Now, they needed safety videos for every tool and process. On Friday afternoon, I downloaded a simple ISO explaining how to safely use a portable electric drill. I found a millwright, had him follow the ISO instructions while using the drill, and captured it all on camera. At home, I transferred the footage from camcorder to VHS, then to a standalone digital DVD recorder. My narration was low, commanding. I had a bad cold at the time. Monday morning, I brought the DVD to Tom's office. He'd expected me gone, but watched the video instead. "I love your narration," he said. I wondered how I'd ever replicate that voice. Soon, I had my own office. I bought a used Sony laptop, figured out Windows Movie Maker, and officially started my new job, making safety videos. I sat at my desk, door shut, narrating in peace. My nameplate outside read, "Please knock before entering." Coffee breaks? Anytime. Lunch? At my desk. Smoke breaks? Whenever. Yes, I've since quit. My salary never changed from disassembly coordinator to safety video guru. I even had another employee download ISOs while I staged shop scenarios, filming with a new high-definition camera purchased with company funds. Visitors. One day I was walking back from the adjacent assembly shop to my office. I usually took a shortcut through a small briefing room with doors on each side and my office door straight across the hall. In the briefing room, 6 middle-aged men were getting a safety briefing. The same routine I'd seen at that vessel shop when I built the butane package for Shell Oil. I walked right behind my old multi-personality foreman. He must have recognized me as the silver back when he saw my name on the office wall. I deliberately left my door open, and as he walked by, he looked the other way so I wouldn't notice. I remembered telling him years ago that I was done supervising and wanted to get back to my trade.
I knew he didn't believe that I had supervisory experience.
Now here I was, with my own office. Computer genius. I found it curious that the corporation was still using late 80s and early 90s computer tech in 2001. Tom didn't like me using my own laptop, so he asked what I needed. Soon, a brand new media laptop was delivered to my office. I set it up for voice recognition so I could say, "Computer, go to internet," and watch visitors' jaws drop, thinking I was some kind of computer genius. Occasionally, Windows Movie Maker froze, so I'd call IT. They could unfreeze the computer, but surprisingly, they knew nothing about Movie Maker. One day, the engineering manager knocked. I had an extra chair, so we chatted about nothing for a few minutes before he left. Then Tom called me into his office. Engineering was starting a new concept, digital blueprints with video vignettes explaining how and where parts were installed, triggered by touchscreen monitors. They wanted me on the team. Me, a welder with a grade 10 education? But by now, I was an experienced compressor station builder and a self-taught videographer. New plan. The engineering manager asked if I knew how wireless touchscreen workstations could be set up. I thought, maybe I shouldn't have shown off with voice recognition. They think I'm a genius. Then I remembered something I'd read a week earlier. Bluetooth, I said. He, a smart young guy, figured out the rest. I moved to the top floor, met the engineering team, and they watched my safety videos. They saw the potential for digital blueprints with video. I returned to the shop floor, camera in hand, capturing footage for them. Big fish. Then something unexpected happened. A bigger compressor corporation bought ours, lock, stock, and barrel. They even wanted our company name. Layoffs followed, offices and shop floors alike. I was let go, along with most of engineering. My pension had already kicked in, and I was over 65, so I stopped searching for work. About a week later, the corporation's name popped up on local news. The fire department had been called to the head office. Someone used a chemical to erase a whiteboard, and the fumes spread through the AC vents. I thought about all the ISO numbers I'd written on the office whiteboard. Permanent markers? Oh well, I'm retired now. Fat gut. My wife was still working, so I drove her to work each morning, went home, ate cereal, and hit the treadmill while watching movies on my laptop. After about 5 months, I was fit, trim, and ready for the next challenge. Medal. Around this time, I learned I would receive a medal for my military service in Germany. It could have been presented by the Governor General in Ottawa, but I asked to have it mailed. The medal has a maple leaf surrounded by a NATO wreath, and the back reads, Special Service. Finally, recognition for being in the crosshairs of the Cold War. Keeping busy. I was elected president of the Community Association. My wife and I played free gigs at community dances. One day, an old age home asked us to perform for an hour. Seniors love live music, and we had a blast. Afterward, the recreation director handed me a $100 check. I insisted we didn't want it, but she said they had a budget, so we accepted. Curious, I searched how many old age homes were near Calgary. 3 one-hour gigs a day at $100 each, 5 days a week, 4 weeks a month. That's $6,000 monthly. Tempting, but we passed. My wife couldn't quit her job. We did a few more homes before stopping, but it wasn't forever. Another province awaited. I also started annual trailer park parades. Locals, seniors in electric wheelchairs, politicians, antique car enthusiasts, the Stampede Aboriginal Queen, and the Calgary Police Bike Division joined in. I built floats, Gilligan's Island boat Minnow the first year, and Pirates of the Caribbean ship, Black Pearl, the next. I did handyman work on the community hall, created simple websites for local businesses, helped seniors, generated revenue for the community newspaper through advertising, re-roofed our trailer, and assisted the park custodian whenever needed. I kept busy until my wife retired 3 years later. New Brunswick. When my wife retired, she said, "Why don't we move to New Brunswick?" I figured it was time. She'd been away from her province since moving to Toronto, where I married her, and honestly, I was ready to pull a geography anyway. The trailer park had gotten a little too familiar. We'd visited New Brunswick a few times to see her large family, and I had memories of the province from my days at Camp Gagetown, including working there as a welder. New Brunswick vacation.
During the 1970s,
We were visiting my wife's parents when they went shopping in town, 18 kilometers away. I was bored. I'd met everyone, and the Miramichi River was lovely, but swimming wasn't exactly exciting for me. Then I heard the local paper mill was having a shutdown, so I grabbed a welding gig for a few weeks. Bought myself a welding helmet, chipping hammer, and gloves. The Montreal-based contract company handling the shutdown assigned me my first task: paper mill shutdown. The digester is a monster, 14 feet in diameter, 240 feet deep, running through several mill floors. On top sat a cone with a welded stainless steel access hatch. My job? Remove the welds, arc air style on that hatch. Millwrights had crafted styrofoam and plywood wedges to fit inside, floating on the water below. Our crew, 2 welders, a millwright to steady the raft with a 2x4, and a helper to manage cables, light, and the ventilation hose. We had a radio and Scott air pack for emergencies. At 140 feet down, we reached the first site. We melted welds off the large stainless plates with holes, probably filters, while the millwright kept the raft steady. After about 25 minutes, the raft shook. I lifted my helmet. Millwright unconscious. Calm normally? Gone. I administered the Scott air pack and screamed at the control room to pump us up now. The helper had, in his infinite wisdom, lowered the vent hose incorrectly, creating a vacuum that recirculated smoke inside the digester. 1 more second and the millwright would have dropped twice as fast. Safety? Non-existent. Accident report? Forget it. I shook my head and walked away. Next day, digester finished by other welders. I was reassigned to install a new rolled angle iron ring on the lime kiln. Crew of 3, a millwright, a helper, and me. I delegated the simple stuff with sketches, did the heavy lifting myself, and they watched. Classic. My final task at Fraser Paper Mill in Newcastle, NB, was cutting into a tank wall to access another tank behind it. The Montreal foreman assured me it was empty caustic. Golden welding rule: never cut into something you don't know about. I asked, double-checked, and still wasn't convinced. Eventually, I quit rather than risk my life. I made $700 in a few days, a small fortune compared to our vacation costs, and lived to tell the tale. Moving plan. I planned to sell everything and start fresh in New Brunswick, but my wife was attached to a few items. Moving costs were $3,000 plus, so I bought an old moving van, fixed it up, planning to sell it later. We sold the mobile home at a good profit and left early one morning, car in tow, quietly exiting the trailer park. Friends? None left behind, just acquaintances. A few tried to stay in touch, but my wife and I are of the same mind. Acquaintances are fine, friends are optional. Secret to happiness. Friends bring obligations, money, emotional support, lending, sleepless nights, and arguments. Acquaintances? Different. Don't let them unload their problems, stepping over a line. Even strangers want to share their life stories.
That's what you're doing, you silverback.
Some are sad, some touching, and you might help, but careful, they might assume friendship. Want to be happy? Guard your boundaries. Consider it an old man's sage advice.